last week. Been doing this for 3 years. That's the first time I've forgotten to click go live. So apologies for that. I will at some point when I have time re-record night two's lesson. But if you did check the link I sent from last semester this spring is exactly the same. So covered everything that we would have covered or that we did cover in our class, but I will record that just so it's specific for this class. But we are live right now, so this will, as of right now, be on YouTube after this, and I'll share the link. So welcome to week 3. Like I said in the chat earlier this morning or in Slack, it's crazy. This is only a 4-week program, so after Wednesday, we'll officially be halfway done. I think we've really covered a lot of the basics through the first 2 nights. Night 3 will again be what I kind of consider basics before we kind of get into the real heavy stuff. But you guys already have a really good understanding. A couple of you have sent me links to your homework from night 2, and they look like dashboards I see in the workplace already. So really proud of where we're at. I'm excited to keep going here. Last week we covered kind of the bar chart, line chart, and scatter plot. Tonight the title of this is just other ways to visualize your data. So we'll go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different chart types inside of Tableau. Very similar to night 2. I'll show you how to build them. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons. Just real basic text tables, highlight tables, heat maps, dual axis charts, tree maps, Gantt charts, and pie charts. Then if we have time, I'll show you guys how to build a donut chart inside of Tableau because it's not a default chart type. Hopefully we get to it because it's kind of fun. All right, storytelling. So this will be homework from last night. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in here right now. So I'd love to get at least 5 volunteers. If you guys just want to send me your Tableau public URL in Slack, I can pull those up. Patrick, if you don't mind, since you just sent me yours, maybe we'll start with you. But again, please don't make me call on people. It's like my least favorite thing to do. So if you could, while Patrick's sharing, if you guys want to Slack me your Tableau public things, we'll kind of go through 4 or 5 of them.
Okay, so you already got it pulled up. So you were helping me with some Pokemon data before, but it wasn't, I was trying to play with the unions, and I was having trouble with the different graphs. So I ended up having to go get my own data. And so we're on the left side, just showing the example of economic outcome during the pandemic. 2019, people are making a good amount of money. I really don't know what caused that salary jump nationwide, but that's interesting. But you could see in the pandemic, unemployment jumped and salaries dropped. And obviously a lot of people were laid off. But yet when you go down to the bottom to the Pokemon card sales, you can see that that's when it started to speed up a little bit and has been picking up a lot more since the pandemic. And on the right side, you have the auction house price. So this does include eBay, but this card has actually landed in some prestigious auction houses as well. And I have the 2 pictures of the 2 versions that are here. But so these are verified sales. These aren't just what people are posting it as, hoping to get money. So on the top is that first edition Shadowless Charizard card that was selling for $20,000 to $25,000, $27,000 normally. And it didn't sell during 2019. I couldn't find that data. But in 2020, it absolutely freaking skyrocketed to 10 times its traditional value, 12, 20 times. Like, that's absurd to think that a card sold for more than $250,000. And it went up a little bit more. And then in 2022 was the last verified sale. And it went down a bit, but it still, during the pandemic went up a ridiculous amount. And then the funny thing with the other Charizard line at the bottom is there hasn't been a first edition Charizard sold publicly in the last couple of years, and now the normal Charizard seems to have jumped up in price, almost as if people are desperate for anything. And I included the pictures just so that you could see right around the Charizard picture itself, that little bit of shading. That's the difference for $200,000, $300,000.
That's awesome. I absolutely love this viz. I think it's really cool that you took the approach of bringing in kind of some economic data as well too, with average income and unemployment rates, to kind of set the stage of your story of like, okay, this happened at a very specific time with COVID-19. What else was going on in that time to kind of set the stage and then show. I also love the use of your yellow or your orange line here as the only different color on the entire dashboard to really make it pop and emphasize like, hey, this is the main point on the dashboard here. Also love that you brought in some pictures to your dashboard because we don't cover that until like night 8, but it's very, very easy to do inside of Tableau. So cool that you're 5 nights ahead there.
Well, I actually watched the Iron Viz, the latest one.
Oh yeah.
And from there, it showed me how to make the empty chambers, the vectors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just able to make an empty chamber and then put the 2 pictures on top of it to space things out properly.
Yeah, I love this. And this is also sweet because like, I don't know why that is with the TikTok algorithm, but apparently I'm very into like cards. I get a ton of TikToks around like Pokemon cards, baseball cards, basketball cards. I think the collection is like that as a hobby, or for some people, like their entire career is really interesting to me. Are you a collector as well?
It's actually how I paid most of my bills during the pandemic. I started hustling cards, buying them off of Facebook, going to stores that were selling them on clearance, and I'd sort through them, get the rares, and sell them to people. And that I was making $2,000 a month selling rares.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. Do you still do it?
No, but I have an absolute massive amount of not rare cards around the house. If you want any, I have boxes and boxes and boxes.
No, I went back. I went back home probably a couple years ago, and I grabbed all my childhood like basketball and baseball cards and stuff like that, and they're just like sitting in a box now. I need to do what you did and actually go through there and see if I have any good ones laying around. And this dashboard was perfect motivation for me to do that. So I may be slacking you on the side and asking for your help there, but cool. Appreciate it, Patrick. All right, Kobe, you just sent me yours, so I'll pull that up. Still would love 2 or 3 more people to send me their homework as well. I did not get yours. Okay, you guys are sending it in the chat. Okay, that's totally fine. Yep, I think 3 more people sent me, so that's good enough for now.
All right, so what we have here is some online gambling data. It's just the state of Connecticut. I couldn't figure out how to name my dashboard and have it show at the top. But yeah, that's what this data is. So at first I looked at the amount of wagers, and this isn't in dollar amount, it's specific wagers. So I kind of wanted to look at the wagers and then the gross revenue side by side, which is why I have those 2 line charts there, just to kind of compare what it looks like. And it starts off pretty similar, which I thought was interesting. But then like 2023 Q3, the revenue kind of dips while the wagers keep increasing. So that kind of intrigued me a little bit. It'd be cool to look into that a little further and try to figure out why revenue dipped there when it kind of stayed consistent with the amount of wagers previously. And then down below, I just looked at winnings of the people who are gambling. I probably should have done a line chart here as well. I think that would have looked a little better, but I wanted to mix it up and do a bar chart instead of 3 line charts. But I mean, it looks pretty consistent as well with what we're seeing up top with the wagers and the gross revenue. It seems like it all kind of correlates pretty well with the amount of wagers and then winnings and gross revenue for the gambling sites.
Yeah, this is super cool. Where'd you get this data?
I believe it was on. Oh, I can't remember. It was one of the links that was in Tableau Public.
Okay.
I'll pull it up and.
Yeah, no worries. I like this at all. These are super clean line and bar charts. I actually don't hate doing the bar chart down below just to have something a little different on the page as well too. The super clean, super consistent. You definitely followed all the stuff that we talked about in class. The axis rulers kind of being the dark black there, no grid lines. So yeah, this looks great. When I pull open Tableau Public for the lesson today, I'll review how to drop that dashboard title in there. But other than that, yeah, this looks fantastic. Nice work.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, next one was Alec.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute it, but this is my fantasy football data over the last 4 years. I've been collecting the data since 2015, but the league that we're currently in has been solidified since no one has left, no one has entered, so it's been the same 12 guys since 2020. PPR, standard league. I just wanted to show the data for some of my guys because they don't believe that they actually suck, and they're just lucky. So especially like the plot, it's points for, points against, average. One of my buddies there, on the top left corner, David. He has like one of the lowest amounts of points against. So he's just lucky. And then with all the data that I had, like I always say that I always do too much. So I just wanted to keep it simple because you should have seen my Tableau before I saved this because it was just like 10 different sheets, a bunch of information. And I'm like, okay, that's not the homework assignment, you know? So this is what I did. I just did like the wins and losses over the years, and they're different colored by year on the top right, all the way on the top, and then the bottom right is like average wins per losses. So one thing that I really liked that I did was get the numbers inside the boxes for the wins and losses in the top. It took me a little while to figure that out, but that was one thing that was pretty cool.
Yeah, this is very, very cool. So you just you keep track of all this data in like Excel every year?
Yeah, I forgot to do 2023, and then when I was looking at the beer data, I was doing way too much, and then it literally just popped up on my desktop, and I was like, oh, I can just do this, and then update 2023 as well.
That's sweet. I can't remember. Well, two things. One, a man after my own heart here. I also made a fantasy football dashboard a couple years ago. Let me sign in and pull it up. And then two, I can't remember what night it is. It's either Wednesday or next Monday. But we do I will show you guys how to connect Tableau Public to a live data set. So using like Google Sheets or something like that. And Tableau Public will actually update real time. So if you wanted to build something like for in season, as you're like going throughout it and like just share the Tableau Public link, everyone go and like look at it every week to see who had the highest points for, highest points against, stuff like that. That'd be a super cool application of this. But yeah, I did like a lot of the same stuff that you did. With like, again, the main reason I built it was I think I ended up losing this year, and I was like, I should have won. I can't remember. This was 2020, so this isn't fresh in the brain there. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I wasn't that good. But yeah, so I love fantasy football. It's cool that you're able to use your own personal data set as opposed to a Tableau Public link, or I mean a public data set as well.
Yeah, I did because last year, 2023, I had the second highest points in my league, but the most against, and I didn't make the playoffs because just luck. Yeah,
Brutal.
Football.
Do you got anyone going tonight?
I got. I'm in 3 leagues. I got James Cook and Josh Allen in one. I'm down by 2, so it's an easy dub.
We should be good then. Yeah. Well, if you need to dip out of class and go check on the game, that's totally fine as long as you give me an update too.
No, I got it right here. I got it in the corner.
All right. Let me pull up the next person here, Josh.
All right. So this wasn't a great data set that I finally settled on. So it's not quite what I wanted, but covers the points that we covered in class. So this was just kind of corn production in the United States. Kind of broke it down by 3 states that I'm connected with, so to speak, to see how many acres are planted and the bushels that are produced. So top left, you see, I got Indiana, Kansas, and Minnesota. Covered everything. Minnesota being a big corn state, but it's top 3 or 4, I believe. So one thing I didn't dig into is you see there on the orange and blue for Minnesota and Indiana in 2007, they had a high spike in acres planted in corn versus the years surrounding it. So I didn't have a chance to dig into that, see why that was. But down below, just how many bushels were produced in those states. And then on the right side, we got the counter chart there, and I just highlighted the 3 states that I'll previously to show where they fell, and I integrated that trend line to see who was being more efficient at the acres. So see that really Illinois seems to be the higher bushel per acre state.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I can't remember. I think I mentioned this night one, but I grew up on a ranch, so definitely been around my fair share of corn in my life. But yeah, I love this dashboard. I think it's super clean. I love how you have the consistent colors across all 3 of those. You even got the colored on the scatter plot. Did you just drop state into there and then go in and color the 3 that you had, colored everything else gray?
Yeah, everything else was gray, and then I just colored the 3 that were corresponding with the other charts.
Love that. No, I think this is great looking. And you tossed in a little linear, what's it called, linear regression line on there as well too for your trend line, which we will not get to until like night 5. So love that you guys are going above and beyond and laughing me here from a teaching standpoint. So yeah, fantastic job, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, DeForest. Just give me 1 second.
Should have named something better. I just called it.
Oh, all good. Cool, go ahead.
All right, so this one made me kind of excited because I think I accidentally stumbled upon what Airbnb is doing at this very moment by looking at past data from it. And so what I have is I have costs per bed over time, and I kind of wanted to layer that with the number of beds per year. And so what you see is that across every sector, which is apartments, houses, lofts, and villas, which is divided by most common to more unique experiences, every sector is going up as far as the amount of hosts that they have. But when you look at the cost of the beds over time, houses lose value and apartments lose value. However, lofts actually go up in value and villas also go up in value. And I don't think that this graph is big enough, but after the 10,000 number, maybe I should click always show or something. But the chart actually takes a really sharp dive. And you would expect that because the supply is less, that the prices will go up, but the prices for the apartments stay low. And so then I just wanted to find a little bit more data to see if this was actually real. And so I just took the common properties versus the unique property value. And so then you can see as a company, you don't have a problem with people signing up to become hosts on your platform, but you do have a problem with increased competition and people wanting to get people to book their spots, so the prices stay low. So as a company, to increase your bottom line, you want to focus on high quality, unique experiences, which is over the last 3 or 4 years what Airbnb has been doing. They have Airbnb experiences. So yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool talking to you last week. kind of stayed after it to go through some of this. Like this was a prime example of like the EDA. I've talked about exploratory data analysis, where you just get your hands on some data and say, hey, go figure something out with no real rhyme or reason, and like using Tableau and literally just trying to build charts because there's the homework. You were able to figure out a lot about the data. Like you don't work at Airbnb, I'm sure you've stayed at one before, but like none of us are in the exact room with them right now. But I guarantee there's the types of charts and the types of conversations that they're having. Like, hey, we're getting more and more people to sign up for that because of this. This is driving prices down due to competition. That means less dollars in our bottom line. What do we need to invest in as a company to ensure that we're able to scale with the amount of users that we ultimately have on our platform as well too? And they come up with these idea of, Airbnb experiences or the villas or like these higher end things that are ultimately able to charge more for because there's less of them. It's classic economic supply and demand. And you were able to figure that out in 30-minute homework at the Omaha Data Science Academy. So this was a really, really cool one to see you work through because I get stuff like this all the time at work where it's like, go figure out why customers cancel. Here's our customer cancel data set. It's like, it's not really specific direction. So you literally just go in and I'll make, no joke, 100 different charts, just looking at anything and everything that I can. And maybe one or two of them will have some valuable insight that I'll pull out and toss into a dashboard just like that. And that's what we'll go and discuss. So a lot of times the hard part, and I said this night one, the hard part about data science is not answering questions. The hard part is actually figuring out what questions to ask. And this chart, I think, does a really good job of begging the question, how should we continue to scale as our users continue to scale? So fantastic job here. All right. Thank you all. We're like right at 30 minutes. I'm actually going to, I hate to do this, but I was busy getting set up. I didn't go to the bathroom. Let me go to the bathroom real quick, and then we'll get into the lesson for the night. I'll give everyone else 5 minutes as well. If you're at home and need to go, and then that way we can kind of power through the first break. So apologies, I'll be right back.
Thanks for using the Airbnb data.
Yeah.
I posted my stability in case you're curious, but I think that looks different. I like your presentation though.
Yeah, I wanted to do something like Bro.
I thought it was interesting at least. Like
Their data was really weird to work with though, wasn't it?
it was, yeah. Some of it wasn't great. I had to like kind of change the like rules and try to figure out what some of it meant. Like it didn't seem intuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Give everyone just a couple more minutes.
Grab another floor.
All right, looks like most people are back here. As always, we'll jump in, brief overview for tonight, try to keep around 20 minutes, and then we'll spend the next hour kind of going side by side, building some of these out together. And then homework is going to be exactly what it was last week, using the data that you guys have found, just try to replicate some of these on my own. I have to say, in my 3 years of doing this, this is by far the best the class has ever done of like finding a data set and making it their own. I say this all the time, like this class is like what you make out of it. If you're willing to go above and beyond, you're going to get way more out of it. If you just want to do the bare minimum, totally fine, you'll get the cert, but you'll have a bare minimum education of it all as well too. So this is awesome. You guys are doing a really, really good job, and it makes things a lot more fun and easy for me. So thank you for being a great class 3 weeks into it. That was the best show and tell I've ever had. So far, so good. All right. How to build other useful charts in Tableau. I'm going to go through the first 4 here: text table, highlight table, heat map, and dual axis charts. There's kind of a logical progression that I use all the time of not trying to overcomplicate things and just get numbers in front of me right away. And it'll make more sense as I go through them. But those 4 I use a lot, and I kind of use them in that order, which again will make sense as we get into it. The bottom 3 here are more kind of specific ad hoc use cases that you'll need occasionally, depending on what type of data that you're working with, but are definitely, if I were to like tier these by priority, the top 4 is really where you'll spend a lot of your time there.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
of course.
When I was kind of doing more design stuff on that analytics site, I ran into some people who have a very strong preference for a particular kind of chart. It's one that Tableau can do, but it also isn't featured here, the bullet chart in particular.
Okay.
Will we touch on that at some point? Because I think it's very dense, so it's very useful for particular kinds of.
Yeah.
I was curious about that in particular.
Yeah. We will not cover it in this course, so let's go ahead and just cover it tonight. It's pretty easy to make. And it's actually kind of a version of the dual axis chart. So let's just add that in there to go through that as well. We'll cover it tonight. It won't take long.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Tonight will again be a heavy hands-on night. We're going to try to fly through these in a very short amount of time. I want to be very clear though, last week's charts, the bar line scatter definitely account for about 90% of the charts that you'll use on a day-to-day basis. But I do think tonight will kind of help set you apart as a viz specialist, depending on the specific use cases of when you use these. And always just getting more and more reps. We talked about this a little bit in class at the end of last night or on Wednesday. But the more reps you have in Tableau and the more kind of different examples you can find, it's just going to help you learn the ins and outs and have a more comprehensive understanding of data viz. So even if these seem boring or seem like charts that you won't use a whole lot, it'll definitely help you understand the pros and cons of them and just have a more comprehensive understanding. So one kind of design law that I want to hit on before we get into these chart types is called Jacob's law. And it is users spend most of their time on other sites. This means that users prefer your site to work the same way as all the other sites they already know. Now, this is obviously tailored specifically to website design, which is why most websites you go to, you know how to navigate around it, even though you've never landed on there before. You know, you click in the top little nav button, you know there'll be a drop down, you know there'll be an About Us page, there'll be a pricing page. You're able to fly around on pretty much every .com site instantly when you land on it, because they build it to make it easy, and they do that by making it look just like every other site. The same can be said for data science and specifically data visualization. They spend most of their time looking at other charts and other graphs, so you want to make yours look like other charts and other graphs. And the reason I wanted to start tonight's lesson with this law is we will cover some chart types in here that go against it. And I definitely early in my career got excited about showing all these cool different types of charts I can build. And I was taking Tableau classes. I went and I saw Data Viz and going through Tableau Public. I'm like, I can do that too. We'll learn how to do it. Just know that most of the time, all the execs will want to see in the boardroom is a bar chart showing the revenue go up. You don't need to make some fancy sort of table to show that. But it'll help us understand Tableau and help us understand Data Viz. So we'll learn it tonight. Just know that you probably won't use it very often because of this. All right, so I'm going to go through those 8 different chart types kind of one by one and talk about the pros and cons of each of them. The first is a text table. So this is using our super sales data, profits by subcategory and region. So here's all our different subcategories. Here's all of our different regions here. The pros of this is a format that everyone is very familiar with. It looks just like Excel. I can't tell you how many times I built a dashboard and our CRO will come over to me. He's like, can you just make it look like my Excel? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So I love that. You can see the details without having to hover, right? Here's our subcategories, here's our regions, here's exactly how much profits they made. Cons, you can only show one thing at a time. So we have one measure and we have one dimension here. And it's really difficult to spot trends. Like you can see with the parentheses that some of these are negative numbers. But other than that, you can't really tell the difference. Like I'm trying to find the highest one right now. Here's a 19K. The lowest one is maybe 11K. So it's good if you just need to know all the data all at once. If you're trying to show something though, it's pretty difficult to spot those trends. So remember, the first 4 are kind of a progression here. So what's the next natural progression to a text table? Something called a highlight table. So this is exactly the same as the one before, except we also tossed a color on there. So now, same thing, format everyone's familiar with. You can easily see it without having to detail or without having to hover. And now you can easily spot trends. So that 19,000 sticks out right away. Is obviously the biggest one. That 11K sticks out like a sore thumb. Those dang tables, we just can't make any profit from them. So again, a pretty natural progression. Cons, you can only really show one thing at a time. Again, we're just showing profits as our dimension here. I guess we technically have a couple different measures on there, but it's kind of a logical progression from the text table to the highlight table. So this next one here, heat maps. Pros, you can show multiple measures at a time. So what I'm showing here is sales and profits by category and subcategory. So we still have our categories over here. We have our, I think this is titled wrong. We have our region over here, but now you can see the size is based on how many sales we've made, and the color is based on the profits. So before we were just showing profit. Here's our big profit, the 19K over here. Here's our really small profit, the negative 12,000, whatever tables was. And you can see where a majority of the sales are coming by the size. So like we sell a ton of chairs in the West, chairs in the East. Here's another big one here, phones across the board. However, this is why I wanted to start with Jacob's Law. It's not a format people are very familiar with. In fact, even when I pulled this up, I haven't looked at it in 6 months. I had to reorient myself. Okay, what am I showing exactly here? It could be great internally for doing EDA to quickly spot trends and see which things you may want to highlight in a different type of chart. But if you pull this up on a big screen and try to present it to people, you'd probably catch some weary eyes. And the other thing that I don't love about it is you can't see the detail without having to hover. So obviously it's the same data that we were just working with, so I was able to quote those numbers. But I don't know, it's tough for me to look at the size of this and match it up over there to see which one's big or small and try to match where the colors land. Now, if this was in Tableau, I could hover over it and see what those numbers were. But if I'm screenshotting it and putting it on a PowerPoint, definitely not a Viz type that I'd probably want to go with. And then the last one, my favorite one, remember kind of the natural progression as we work our way down, is a dual axis chart. So here I'm showing sales and profits again by category and subcategory. So furniture, office supplies, technology are the categories. Here's my subcategories down below. And you can see I have sales on the bar chart and profits on the line chart. So these are 2 chart types that we learned about last week. Here we're just combining them into one. So I can easily show multiple dimensions and multiple measures here. I can easily spot trends. I can see that a majority of our sales are coming from chairs and phones. Those are the highest bars, right? The majority of our profits, however, are coming from copiers. We're getting negative profits in the tables category. The only thing I don't love about this is you can't easily see the details without hovering. However, looking at the axis is a little bit easier than trying to map size and colors to it. And it's a format that people are very familiar with. So it's just bars and lines kind of on top of each other, which is very, again, easy for people to understand.
Another con with that one, at least as it's shown here, the profit goes below the zero axis, which makes it difficult for you to see how much you lost there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that is really bad in this example is I only have one axis here. Normally you'd want two. I must have just missed it when I screenshotted it. But as we cover it, yeah, we would definitely want to see, I'm guessing this is sales over on the left.
Right.
We'd want another one over here on the right to be able to see where those are at. Any questions on kind of these first four? No? Give me 1 second. All right, let's split this up a little bit. Let's go through those four first before we go on through the next ones, just so it's not me sitting up here going through a PowerPoint for a long time. So we'll switch things up and we'll cover hands-on for the first four, and we'll teach on the next three, and we'll do hands-on on those two. So everyone go ahead and open up Tableau Public. Just like we start every class, open up Microsoft Excel and choose our Superstore data. Tonight, we're only going to be working with the orders, so you can drag that over here and ignore the other two. We'll be good to go. Click over to sheet one. I'll give, I know not everyone had Tableau Public up and ready to go, so I'll give everyone a couple moments here to get that loaded up.
Did you pick any particular data, just orders?
Just orders, yep.
How do I make a new table?
Oh, just so I go.
But the problem is that it's going over this.
Oh, I would go ahead and just close out of this.
So the
Yeah. You go to the top. You should be able to just hit the next one there. Because you've already published this. Awesome.
so now watch this. Okay, that was weird. Because I swear to you, I closed out of Tableau
Yeah,
already.
that's just the classic teacher paradox where anytime someone comes over,
Uh-huh.
it will instantly work.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go on. Pull this up. First thing we'll build is just the real basic text chart. So to do that, let's bring in category on our columns, subcategory on our rows.
I think your screen sharing has frozen.
Hate that. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, live for you guys now. Cool. All right, so categories on the columns, subcategories on the rows. And then we're going to we've covered this a little bit before, but to make just a basic table, let's just take sales and we're going to drag it onto the text square in the kind of marks modal here. Now, the only thing we're going to change here is we're going to make our sales a currency. So remember to do that. We click the little arrow on sales and go default properties, number format. Let's go currency custom. So we can get rid of those decimal places. And let's change the display units to thousands. So it should look like this. Currency custom, no decimals. Display units, thousands. Now, if your guys look like mine, you can see the categories here kind of cut off. If you just hover between them, you can drag those out to give it a bit more space there. Or if you wanted to take up the entire screen, remember you can go up here where it says standard. You can just go entire view. But I like working with mine in a little smaller area here. Maybe drag this one out as well. If I can.
How did you get it to currency again? I'm clicking the down arrow on sales, but for some reason I don't have the. I don't think I have the little tab thing.
It's under default properties.
Okay, yeah, that's
I
not
was
popping up.
helping someone with. Yeah, if you're working in the web version, I don't think it's in there.
Oh, okay.
Someone answered that question.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Then last thing I would do, well, a couple more things real quick. Let's rename this. Since we're going to have a lot of the same thing, let's call this text table dash sales by sub category. Something like that. And then we can probably right click on category and go hide. Probably right click on this as well. Hide that.
Thank you.
All right, everyone with me so far? Cool. Let me know if you're not. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and duplicate it. So just press this duplicate button. And we're going to rename this one to just be a highlight table.
I think it might have froze on you again. I could be wrong.
That's frustrating. Good now. Cool. All right, so this is right now, again, the same exact thing as our text table. I just renamed it to be a highlight table. What we are going to do.
Where did you duplicate that? I'm sorry, it cut out on me before I could see that.
All good. Is this button right up here?
Oh, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep. You can also right click on your tab and go duplicate as well too. All right. Now, there's actually a couple different ways that you can do this. The first is let's go ahead and take sales and just drag it onto color. And what this is going to do by default is actually color our text here, which is not the same as we had in our PowerPoint, if you remember, right? We want to color the background behind it. Well, for this specific example, we want to. If you guys want just the color of the text, that's totally fine as well. But if we want to change it to be a highlight table here, we can click into marks. Actually, let me make sure this is the best way to do it. You can also just click, this is like cheating, but I use it all the time. You can click the show me button, and in the top right, there's a highlight table. It messes some things up, so you would need to drag categories back there. But this would give you the same thing. If you didn't want to cheat and do the show me, so I'll go back. This is the highlight table we had. In marks right now, you can see it's on text, which is automatic. If you just change that to square, what that's going to do is actually plot squares on your table, which are the color of your sum of sales. And then you have text, which is also the sum of sales. So it's actually two things on one. But that's how you would build a highlight table here. Now, just for fun, let's go ahead and take profit and drag it on top of sales. So we're replacing it on both our colors and our text. And the reason I wanted to do that is so we can get some negative numbers in here, just so you can see how the color scheme goes. And that's actually what I use in my examples as well. So if we had profit on here, let's just make sure we rename this to be profit by subcategory. And then let's go ahead and change the default number format for profit as well. So right click on the profit button, default properties, number format, currency custom. You might as well make it exactly the same. No decimal places and show thousands.
You added a color, stepped color,
What was that?
you got a stepped color.
You should just be able to drag sum or drag profit right onto color, and it'll do it by default. But I will get to that in a second.
How did you do the parentheses versus the negative? Or did you do that on purpose, or is that auto for you?
It's auto for me.
Okay, that's all right then. Never mind. It's fine for me for right now. I just see the negative versus the parentheses.
Did you change it to a currency?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I can check and see if there's another.
In number format, the same spot that you changed it to a currency, there's a little drop down for negative values. So mine by default is parentheses, but you can change it to whatever you want.
Perfect, thank you.
Now, if you wanted to change the color here, just like changing the color on a bar chart or a line chart, you just click into that and hit edit colors. And you can choose, maybe you want to show some different shades of blue. I always like temperature diverging because it's red and green, but green is negative, red's positive. I don't like that, so you can hit reverse. Now you get some red and green in there. All sorts of different
I
options
like
in here.
red and green because that's like your classic stock.
Right. Red and blue, if you want it to be a little bit more Tableau-y. Actually, I think that may be the same as the automatic. Yeah. If you want it to be super red, you can hit this use full color. But yeah, a lot of different options that you have in there. It doesn't really matter right now. We'll leave it as automatic and call it good.
I got a question for you. Sorry. So where it shows negative like 18,000 for table, sorry, I've been trying to mess around with this. I have the marks area for me, they look the exact. Never mind. I see where I went wrong. Sorry about that.
All good. Answer your question. All right, let's go ahead and duplicate this. And now let's say we want to show sum and profit. let's go ahead and get rid of get rid of the text. So now it should look just like this. So we have category, subcategory, and some profit on our colors. Now we can drag sum of sales onto the one that says size here. So now we're showing, and we'll want to clean this up a little bit in a second. We still have our categories, we have our subcategories. You can see the color is based on sales, which is over to the right here. And instead of the text also being, the color is based on profits, which is over to the right. And instead of the text also being profits, we have sales on the size, which is making these different sizes. Now, obviously, this is really hard to see. So if you just click into size, there's a little slider over here, and you can move this around to get a size that kind of works well for the chart here. Since this is so small, maybe I will do entire view, and I can make them a little bigger here. And again, this is just called a heat map. So let's retitle it to say heat map. But again, I want it on record since this is going on YouTube. I do not like this chart at all, but this is how you make it. There are lots of instances though where you may want to, we'll actually use size here again in a bit. For another chart type here, we use color all the time. So being able to see how these interplay from some different angles will be beneficial just from a learning aspect. Anyone have any questions on this one? Cool. The very last one, the one I like the best, the dual axis. So again, let's go ahead and duplicate it just so we have a nice starting spot here. Now what we're going to do is bring subcategory up right beside category in columns. So now you can see our furniture is grouped together. We have our bookcases, chairs, furnishings, tables, office supplies are grouped together, technology is grouped together. So we're grouping by category first, furniture, office supplies, technology, and then subcategory second. That's how these groupings are displayed. And let's go ahead and drag sum of profit off our colors and onto our rows. Stick with me here, this will all come together in a second. And then let's drag sum of sales off our size and also onto our rows. So now we have category, subcategory, and we have sum of sale or sum of profit, sum of sales. Now we still have in our marks, see how it's a square right now? We're gonna leave that for right now. And now in marks for the first time in this class since we've been together, we have 3 different tabs in here. So now I have basically what I do, you can see now that I have 2 measures up there, I can control them independently of each other. So for instance, right now you can see I have sum of sales open. Just to prove my point, I'm going to change that to purple. And only the sum of sales changed to purple. Or I can click into sum of profit, I can click the size, drag that down, and only this one changes. So when you have multiple measures on there, you also have multiple customizability in your marks tab to basically make, and I know like night 1 I said this wasn't possible, but basically we have 2 different views in one right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use that to our advantage, and let's make sum of profit instead of a square. Let's change that to a line. And then let's click into sum of sales, and instead of a square, let's make that a bar. Now we have a nice line chart for our profit, a nice bar chart for our sales. However, we messed around with the size, or at least I did. I think these are way too big. So let's drag that size back down a little bit just to get a little space in between them. I know I went fast there. Does anyone have any questions? We're going to keep building on top of this. So if you do, please ask.
The only thing that I'm missing is just like mine is also the colors.
That's fine. All right. So this is where the magic happens here. On our second chart, so this one, the top one is profit, bottom one is sales. Let's right click into the axis. And all we have to do is click dual axis. When we click that, Tableau brings them together. It's okay, it looks ugly, we'll clean it up. But now we have dual axis in one view. We still have our profit over here. We have our sales over here. And you can see we have the bar and the line chart here. Okay, now this is a fun little nuance here. Whichever one is shown first in your rows up above will be behind, and whichever one shows second will be in front, which is why our bars are covering up our lines. So all we need to do to change that is just drag sum of sales over to the front of profit, and it'll pop those lines out on top of the bars. Now I'm going to go ahead and rename this. Let's just call this sales versus profits by subcategory. Okay, does everyone have what I have right now? If you don't, let me know.
I have some labels on the number. So like both the bar and the line have
Okay. If you click up to click all there, I'll just see the labels. There we go. Cool. Thank you. All right. Now, since Tableau, since we have two things on one chart here, you can see it automatically dragged this new field that we haven't seen before on the colors, measure names. There are two default data points that Tableau always gives you. One of them is measure names, and one of them is measure values. This is literally just going to say if you want to bring all of these into once and just use the names of them, you can drag this over anywhere. If you want to bring all the values into this, you can bring that over. For right now, since we just have category and subcategory, if you click on the color, edit colors, you can see that we have profit and sales here. Now, I think that these colors are really harsh, so I'm probably going to change my sales to be like a nice gray, and maybe I'll leave profit as blue here. So it's a little bit easier on the eyes, but feel free to mess around the colors, whatever you want here.
Okay, I think that's what it is. So under all three, I still have some profit and some sales. I think yours has measure.
Yeah, so you should be able to just drag those off. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and pull those off. There you go. And then click into color. Let's just make these. Here. Now if you go back to all, we should be able to change this to the colors you want. Yep. All right. So now we can easily see we have our sales over on this axis. We have our profits over here. You can see that the profits are blue, the the sales are gray. A little tip and trick I like to do, because it's still, for me as a user, kind of hard to tell. Like, I can't tell which of these are sales without having to go and look at the color here and look up here. So what I do, and this is the first time we've done this before, by default, your Tableau or your view title will always just be whatever you name your view, right? So here we have sales versus profits by subcategory. If I update the name of that, you can see the title updates as well too. However, it doesn't have to be that way. You can also double click into title and see where it just says sheet name here. That's just a variable that Tableau has. So basically it's saying whatever the sheet name is, which in this case is sales versus profits by subcategory, that's what we want to show up here. You can also type whatever you want below it, right? And it'll add that in there as well. You can change the color of all this. That will work there as well too. So you can update this title. So what I like to do for dual axis charts in order to improve my data ink ratio and get rid of some of this is I will actually just type in here whatever the name of my sheet is. So sales versus profits by subcategory. Now what that allows us to do, instead of just using the sheet name, is to customize specific things in here. So let's color like this all black, except for profit, because profit is blue over here. So maybe if I just highlight that one word and change it to blue, I'd love like a Tableau blue, whatever. And maybe we'll bold it. And then we'll take sales and change it to like a nice gray. We'll bold that. So now when I look at it, I can see that I have sales in gray, profits in blue, and that's what I'm showing down below. So now I don't necessarily need my color legend here, so I can hide that. And it makes it instantly able to read at first glance what you're showing for sales and what you're showing for profits. I still like having the axis labels over here, although we removed them a lot last week. Again, just to be able to tell this is sales going up to 300K versus this is profit going up to 50K. Yeah, Patrick.
Is there a way that you can adjust the measures on the side? Because until you mentioned it, I actually didn't think about that. The profit scale was different. So in my head, looking at the blue profits, it looks like there's negative 100K with that line, but it's really only 20K. Is there a way that we can force the scales to be the same?
Great segue. So I think we talked a little bit about this last week indirectly with like when to show zero and when not to show zero. By default, Tableau is always going to give you kind of the maximum range for your data. So you see this one goes all the way to the top, this one goes all the way to the bottom. I, in this use case, actually like the idea of having them synced up, because if they're synced up, exactly the point you made there, like we're having to do 300K in sales to only get 27K in profit. And if I look at this right here, it looks like we're doing 300K in sales to get 150K in profit. So if I right click into my profits axis over here and click this synchronize axis button, now they're all on the same axis. So you can see this one goes from, it's not showing down below here, but negative up to positive 300K. This one's also going from negative to positive 300K. So now you can see, okay, we're having to do a ton of sales to get profit, and they're on the same range there. So I can see this one's easily 300K, and this one's only 27K, so those line up a little better. What that also allows us to do is now, since we're using the same axes, we don't need both of these. So we can go ahead and right-click into this one and just uncheck that show header, and that will remove that axis. Now I'm remembering why I had it that way in my example in the PowerPoint. And now this one's no longer just sales. It's actually sales and profits. They're showing the same thing. So we can double click into this and get rid of that axis title just like we did last week. Now we have one axis. We have the color and the title here, sales versus profits. It's showing 2 dimensions and 2 measures all in one chart. Yeah, I just love dual axis charts. They look so clean, they're easily recognizable, you're able to show a ton of stuff, they're easy to make, everyone's seen them before, and it's really easy to see the relationship between the two. Does everyone have this so far? And if you don't, please let me know, because this will be the homework, is basically replicating these. So
Could you
Can
show
you,
the last part where you set it to 0 or set to 0?
where I synced up the axes?
Yes.
Yeah, let me see if I'm smart enough to undo that. So this is how it looked by default. We had our sales over here and our profits over here. If we just right click into profits, there's this synchronized axis. And if we click that, then it will make them the same size here. Then we can get rid of this one. And again, that's just right clicking it again and unchecking show header. Then to get rid of this one, the axis label for sales, you just double click into it and just delete sales out of there.
We haven't talked about this yet, but also, since this doesn't have years, sorting might make sense, or because it'd be easier to see trend.
Yeah. So maybe we want to, the question was like, would we maybe, we've done line charts by years before, where obviously they make sense. But in this, we're using a line chart as just another view of this. If we wanted to sort in like a descending order or something, if we right click into, say we want to sort by sales, we right click into that. Did I lie here? Okay, I was trying to overcomplicate it. Up here, there's these two little down arrows and up arrows here. If we want to sort in descending order, obviously click the one with the big line on top. And now you can see our sales go down and to the right here. If you want it to be in ascending order, click the one with the little one on top, and those will switch around here. So maybe I like it descending. So now it's really easy to see where our sales are at. And you can see that our profits actually don't follow the same trends here. So yeah, this is a great idea. This is really easy to pick some things out here. Like for instance, tables has the second most sales in our furniture category. But actually our lowest, the only negative, second negative from a profit standpoint. Office supplies are actually pretty close. Those must be pretty predictable margins there. And then technology actually kind of have an inverse trend here, where some of our lower sales ones are actually where we have our biggest profits. So DeForest, using your analogy from Airbnb earlier, maybe we need to start pumping some copier sales out there, because that's where the money's at. Yeah, great call, Luke. All right, now stretch goal here before our first break. A bullet chart is actually a type of dual axis chart on here. So we're gonna be able to change this to a bullet chart really easily. To do that, let's go ahead and duplicate this, because it's really, really close to what we want. All we're gonna do is change our line chart here. So in our marks, we have our bar, which is sales, and our line, which is profit. Let's change that to a bar as well. And believe it or not, this is basically a bullet chart here. So what this would be, it's a really bad, the data here is a really bad example of how to make a bullet chart. But basically when a bullet chart would be used for is if you would have like goals versus actuals. And what you would do is you would drag your goals to the first bar here, and then you would drag your actuals to the second bar. And you would want to see how close these could get to the very, very top. And what you would do, it did it by default, because for me, but maybe not all of yours look like this. you'd want to make your size, you actually go whichever way you really want. Maybe you want it bigger for your goals and smaller for your actuals here, or maybe you want your actuals big and your goals small. But those are just a few different ways of making the same chart type. Another way I've seen them done before is for your goals, which again is a fake example. I know I'm not showing that data here, but just pretend that the gray lines are goals here. Instead of a bar, there's this little, so you could do like a circle. So now you can see like what you have to get up to. Maybe you want it to be a different shape, like a star. So you can see like how close you are your way all the way to the top. This Gantt bar here actually will just give you a flat line. I think DeForest used one of those in one of your examples. So you can see how close you are. But that's what a bullet chart is. It's just a dual axis. It's supposed to look like bullets or different things going up to. And again, the main use case of when you'd want to use those is comparing how close you are like to a goal. But all it is a dual axis, which is cool.
Also, like if you use the kind of transformative bullet chart, like the show me, usually the bullet chart also has like an average or something, like another third bullet or point. So it kind of, I don't know. That's not really what I'm used to either, but
Right.
I am, this is cool, thank you.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can customize it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and change mine back. Rename it just so I don't get lost.
We just name the bullet chart.
Yeah. So we'll pull
Charts.
All right, there's a couple more quick ones, and we'll go ahead and take a break. So again, I want to continue to hammer it home. I really, really like, actually I don't love heat maps, but I really like text tables, highlight tables, and dual axis charts. I use those a lot. These next few kind of have real specific use cases. I don't love them, but we'll build them. So the first is a tree map. You can show a large amount of items in a single viz, which I really like. It's easy to approximate parts of a whole. So really this is kind of in like the pie chart family here, where you can see this is all of our profits, and depending on how big they are, that's kind of the part of the whole. So you can see like about a third of our total profits are made up from copiers, phones, and accessories. You can drag different colors and sizes. However, some of the cons, negative values make this get really wonky, right? We're showing a part of a whole, and 18,000 is negative 18,000 is the size of 18,000. Can't really take out 18,000 from this. So it gets a little wonky. Obviously the data ink ratio is really bad. And like I just mentioned, the negative number sometimes complicates it. But let's go ahead and build that. Let's just go ahead and duplicate whatever our latest one is. Because to build this, I always go to the show me, and I just hit this tree map button right here. And you can see it pulls it in. I'm going to get rid of the sub or the category and just leave subcategory. So now my text is subcategory, my size is profits. And my color is sales. I would probably, like I talked about, since profits can be negative, let's drag sum of sales onto the size instead. Just show sales here instead of profits. So now again, easier to approximate the parts of the whole, easy to see trends. Obviously you can't see the details unless you hover in here. But it does do a good job of kind of showing, hey, phones are a lot, labels are a little. If you didn't want to hover, we can just drag some of sales onto our labels as well. Now those obviously populate right here as well. And just like anything that we built in here, again, repetition, repetition, repetition. You just click colors. If you wanted to make this a different color, it's really easy to do right here as well. Let's just call this tree map.
For some reason, my data looks a little bit different than yours.
Ooh, now note, I'll be right there. I just renamed this one. You can see my title didn't change because I edited it in the previous one, then we just duplicated it. If you just wanted to get it back to the default sheet name, again, you just double click into there, backspace this stuff out, and then there's this little insert button, and just click on the sheet name. If you guys want to have some fun in your homework, if I double click back into there, you can see there's actually a ton of default variables that you can put in your Tableau thing. So if I wanted to do like data source name, you can see that this is what it's pulling from, orders superstore data. Sometimes what I'll do is I will put a username in here. So you can see mine is, I'm using my work laptop, so buildertrend.charlie.verbasol. Sometimes we'll put that into like sales dashboard, so then whoever's looking at it, their own name will be there. I can see like Charlie Verbasol sales. But yeah, there's a lot of default caption. I actually don't know what some of these are. You can actually use variables in here as well too. So if I had like sum of sales in here, it'll tell me that it ranges from 3,000 to 330,000. So feel free to play around. Okay, and then you said yours was looking a little different.
Yeah. So like mine says phones.
Oh, I think just go ahead and drag. You still have profit for the size, which is what I have too. I just reduced it. So it's just showing it. It was the size of my profit, so by sales.
Okay. So I guess technically you would want profit to be there.
Yeah, whatever. I have sales in both of mine. The only reason I got rid of profit was profit could be negative, and that causes the tree maps to get kind of wonky.
Oh, I see.
All right, we're gonna do one more, then we'll take our break here because after that we'll get into pie charts. And I have a lot of opinions on pie charts, so I want to make sure we have plenty of time. The Gantt bar. So this is a really, really, really helpful chart type sometimes. The use cases for Gantt bars are incredibly limited. Basically, the only time you would use this is if you want to show some sort of calendar or schedule feature. So like here, I'm showing how long, and we'll actually build this, but here's all of my orders, and I'm showing how long, how many days they take to get delivered. Buildertrend actually has a Gantt bar inside of our platform. This is all the different schedule items. So this is what it would take to build a house. You do your first floor framing, you do your second floor framing, you frame the roof. You can see the start date for each of those and how long they last. So you can see, okay, I need to get this done before I can move on to this stuff. So again, when I was trying to find examples of this, most of them are really awful. Pretty much the only time you'll ever use these is when you're trying to show like schedule timelines. If you're trying to build out like product roadmap, you're like, I'm gonna work on this feature for a while, and this feature for a while. This is how you do it. Gantt bar is a really, really good way to do that. But again, I have not found a good use case for it outside of that. But they're kind of fun to build. So let's go back to Tableau Public, or Tableau, our desktop version, right? We're gonna actually start a new sheet here. So instead of duplicating, and we are going to take, to start with, because the data is really big and this will get messy really quick, let's drag order date onto filters. Choose the one that says month/year, hit next. And let's just click on the very top one, January 2014. The only reason I'm doing this is just to filter the amount of data that we have down, so we're not working with, hundreds of thousands of different rows.
You said January 2014?
Yeah, any one you want. Now we are going to take, let's bring in, I think it's called order ID onto rows. And it'll give you a warning, ignore it, add them all. So here's all of our different orders. And then we are going to take order date and drag it onto rows as well. And then let's go ahead and change it from a year. Let's click that little drop down and click exact date. And then it changes to continuous, which is annoying. So right click into it again and just click discrete. So now we have all our order IDs right here, and we have the date that they were ordered. Now the last thing we're going to do is bring order date again one more time up to columns as well, and change this to an exact date. And we'll leave it as continuous. So right now, I want to make sure we're going step by step. We're grouping by order ID. So each order ID is its own row. We're also technically grouping by order date, but there won't be multiple order dates, so they're pretty much one-to-one. So we have our order ID, order date, and then we also, for our columns, have order date. So you can see how this stretches out from January 1st to January 31st. If you hover over to each one of these little lines, again, right now, all it's showing is just the order date. So, but you can see January 3rd is over on the left. You go to one over on the right, here's January 28th. So the only thing that we need to add in here is the size. How big do we want each one of these little bars to be? Because right now you can see they're all the same size. So, is everyone with me so far? Cool. Appreciate the head nods. This will be, we'll do a whole night on calculated fields. I need to start reviewing my curriculum because I can't remember what night anything is. But we're just going to do one for right now to kind of give you a sneak peek. So right here, we know we've covered this a million times. We have our dimensions here, we have our measures here. These are by default just the columns and the data set that we're working with. So these are the different data points that we have. We can create our own data points as well too. And I've talked about this a ton. Tableau is really good because it gives you data engineering skill sets, it gives you data analytics skill sets, it gives you data science skill set. It also gives you some really, really basic coding skill sets as well. So if we click into this arrow, which is right to the right of the search menu here, and click Create Calculated Field, very, very first one on here. This is going to pop up a little text box here, and we can create our own data points, either from scratch or using other data points. We right now want to create a data point that is going to be the difference between the order date and the ship date. So basically, how long did it take to ship? Let me go ahead and pull up Excel so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Right, we have these two columns. We have order date and ship date. If we were in Excel, we could create a new column, right? And we could just do a date diff between those two dates. We can do that same thing in Tableau. And it's just called date diff. So if you start typing it in, you'll see all the different functions that you can use in Tableau. We're going to go down, and you just hit enter on the one that says date diff. Let me make this bigger.
Where did you go to create the date diff?
Yep. So right up here, there's a little drop down arrow. You'll hit create calculated field. That work?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Cool. All right, so we're just going to title this, well, we'll go back to where I was. So date diff. Again, we're going to do an entire lesson on calculated fields in here. But for the sake of tonight, when you create a function in Tableau in a calculated field, it gives you this little pop-up. And it tells you what parameters you need inside of your parentheses there. So you need a date part, you need a start date, and you need an end date. So our date part we're just going to use single quotations, right? So just one quotation, and just type in day, and then another quotation. So that's telling us we're going to measure how many days. Then you get a comma and the start date. If you just start typing in order, you can see it populates over. So go ahead and hit tab, and we have order date. And we'll do a column again, or a comma again. And then the last one we'll type in ship, and you can see it populates over ship date. And now I don't get any more ugly errors. And we can title this like days to ship. So I'll leave this up for a second. Tableau is really finicky about syntax and stuff. So make sure that both of your quotations are single quotes. Make sure that these are orange. If they're orange, that means that it's pulling from an actual field over here. You can see if I mistype something and have like orders date, it goes to black. That's not something it recognizes. But if it's orange, that means you're all good. Make sure you have commas between each one. If you're good, you'll get this little pop-up in the bottom that says this calculation is valid. If something's off about it, you'll get a real red pop-up that says it contains errors. But if everyone has this, we'll hit OK. And now you can see we have a brand new measure in here, days to ship. So what this is doing, we can go ahead and click on our data source here. Right, here's our data. We scroll over here. We now have a new column called days to ship. You can see it even says this is a calculation here. So for each row in here, it's looking at the difference between the order date and the ship date. So November 11th, November 11th, or sorry, November 8th, November 11th. And it's telling us that those are 3 days apart. 3 days apart. This one's 4 days apart. So we created a new data point inside of our data that we can now use in our business. So we go back to the sheet that we were working on and take that new data point that we just created, days to ship, and drag it up onto size. Now we have a Gantt chart where you can see this one was ordered, right, January 28th, over January 28th, and the bar is 6 days long. So you can see it took until February 3rd or whatever to mail.
So when you do that, but that's okay. So when you do that, you select ship date and create a calculation from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you need to see that calculation again?
Not to control.
Oh, okay. Cool. Now the only things I may be changing here, this is actually a good use case for the detail little square in the marks. We haven't really talked about that before. Maybe I can obviously see the order date. I can see how many days it took to ship, but maybe I want to see the ship date as well too. If I drag that onto detail, ship mode, I want ship date. And again, you can go ahead and change that from a year to an exact date. Now when I hover over it, you can see I have order date, I have ship date. Maybe I also want to look at the shipping modes. So if I drag ship mode onto color, now you can see, okay, my really, really big bars here are red, standard class, that makes sense. My middle ones are first class, that makes sense. Here's my second class ones. And then I guess also maybe this is kind of all over the place. If you click this little sort button at the top of order date, this would be like kind of a more stereotypical Gantt chart here where, here you go, you had January 3rd, took 4 days to ship, got there January 7th. Here you have January 4th, took 12 days to ship. So you can see how the start of each one of these line up on the order date, and they actually go the same number of days that you need to when they actually get shipped as well. Any questions on Gantt charts? I don't want to get too in the weeds here because again, the use cases are fairly limited, but I did want to show you. Yeah.
Getting kind of like,
I'll pop over.
they're all kind of like aligned.
Yeah, that's fine. I think all I did, I kind of did it quick because I just sorted mine.
I
Yeah.
think I sorted there. It's there.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I've missed a step on the date ranges to be able to see the ship date, the full link that you have.
All I did was just drag the ship date onto details here,
Uh-huh.
and then just change it to be exact date. So then when you hover over, it'll have the ship date in there.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Kind of. Also, the row at the bottom. What parameters did you pick to get the days to show up?
Oh, in the field we created?
Yeah.
Yeah. Zoom in here. So just, date diff, order date, ship date.
How do my chart looks like,
Looks what?
looks a little bit messy.
I said this really quietly, I think, because a few people missed it. All I did was order at the very top here where it says
Okay, gotcha.
order date. I just sorted it in ascending order.
Okay. I missed a couple of steps. I'll just watch it later.
Okay. Cool. Let's go ahead and take a quick 9-minute break. So we come back at 7:45, and we'll cover some pie charts. We should be done by 8, and then we'll move on to the homework like normal. So quick 9-minute break. Be back 7:45.
So you can calculate pretty much any like quantitative data using that calculations.
Oh yeah.
It has built-in functions, and then you can just kind of type in measure.
Yep. You can create what you can make dimensions. You can make measures. You can use it. Like I said, we'll do a full night on it.
I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's definitely one of the more powerful features in Tableau.
So then on like the cloud version, like the server version that you run at work, if you had those formulas on this side, then those would have to be linked to the raw data, right?
So it actually, no. Tableau plays kind of a middle layer here where you have your raw data and then it actually transforms the data into a secondary kind of data set, and that's what it works off of. So any calculated fields that you make just kind of appends onto that, but it doesn't touch the raw data at all.
Right, but like if you updated your raw data, the advantage would be, well, potentially at least, that you could write these calculated fields in Tableau and not have to put them in your database if you weren't using them for.
Exactly. Yep. So that's actually, if you go through kind of like a database design course, best practice is to always capture the minimal amount of data that you need in your kind of production data tables. And then that's why you have like data lakes or data warehouses or whatever you want to call them, where you curate, and Tableau would be an instance of that, where you curate just what you need specifically. So you're always pulling from the raw data, but this one could have 20 more columns. This one could be ordered differently. This one could be whatever you want to have in there. So that way the consistency and kind of the standards can persist through the raw data. But yeah, because some of these things, I'll make hundreds of different calculated fields. And if we were doing that in production, it'd be 100 different fields they would need to maintain, but you make it whatever you want in here. I'll be right back.
So you thought you were okay at that, bro. I mean, I was able to follow along with my minutes here. It's like the basics, like I can look at it and kind of know what's going on with things.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, I used it before to do some stuff, but I didn't know about calculated fields at all. Some of this stuff is kind of like unintuitive.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's like other platforms out there, but this is just like the big one for the industry.
This powerful shit. I mean, I've used Power BI a little too, but this seems more intuitive to me than that.
Yeah. What's like the craziest thing that you've ever done with data that really impacted you?
Great question. I'd say the coolest one and probably biggest impact. The only reason I hesitate is it's kind of like a standard thing that most people do is just a churn predictor. So just trying to predict when customers are going to cancel. So they'll return as a subscription-based pricing, just like Netflix or Hulu or anything like that. And we have 20,000 customers and only 100 CS reps. So it's really hard for them to stay on top of their book of business to make sure that everyone's doing good. So they get cancellation requests from people they haven't talked to in years and just be like, oh, I didn't know anything was going wrong. So basically just building a model that looks at their usage and the product. And if they start trending down, then just generate a task for the CS rep to reach out to them and be like, hey, you qualified for a special one-time only strategic business review where I'll go through your account for you and tell you how you can be maximizing the value that you're getting out of the trend or something like that to try to get them right on the right track. Then you can take that even further and give away if someone's really at risk give away special discounts, different pricing and things like that. Or if someone's really, really healthy, maybe you would generate an opportunity to get them to try to upgrade, like, hey, look like you're crushing your usage. We actually have a complete package on top of your advanced package. So just trying to streamline, automate, and predict a lot of the stuff that CS reps do if they have the time to go through every single one of their book of business, but just have a computer do it for them instead and tell them where they should be spending time.
That goes into like machine learning and stuff.
Yeah, it was a random forest model. But yeah, there's been a few different things. Similar type model for like propensity to sale. So like on the sale side, like we actually, in this work, it's kind of like Big Brother-y, but right, cookies can track what websites you visit and how long you spend on those websites. So if people are Googling a ton for builder trend, spending a lot of time, the right time to close them is always as quick as possible. So you want to reprioritize the sales reps sales queue to be like, hey, this one's ready to buy right now. Versus someone that maybe like accidentally clicked on an ad and hadn't been back in like 30 days. It's like, hey, stop cold calling them. They don't actually want to buy the product.
That's insane.
So to be able to, yeah, it's all just like, and the big thing is like a lot of smaller companies don't need that. If you have 100 customers, like, and this kind of goes to the AI thing earlier. Neither one of those are as good as a senior rep actually going through and talking to a customer. Like they're always going to know what's best for the customer and if they should upgrade or get a discount or if they want to sell. But just from a scale standpoint, you need to be like find ways to automate that kind of stuff. So that's another reason that like that would be, it's better to help. It's not replacing the rep. It's like giving them additional value, I would say. So that's one reason I don't feel as bad or as nervous about like AI. It's like people using it are going to be able to maximize the roles that they already have, not replace the roles that they have.
I have an anecdote about that as well.
Sure.
I've been spending a lot of time doing research, specifically with a tool called Build Better, which is basically Fireflies or Otter AI, but with like a little bit of ChatGPT kind of chat built into it, so you can extract from calls. And what I've found over the last, I don't know, I've used it for about a year now, off and on, and then solidly for like the last 8 months. I get more out of each call. And I have trouble explaining it to other people because it's like hard to imagine what it is that's in there. But it's like, it feels like if you have a decent conversation with anybody, like a real one where you're really like getting into stuff, there's always stuff that you say where someone's like, what was that again?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And if you just don't lose that, like those 9 things, it ends up being like additive and powerful later.
Yeah.
I'm just super excited about it.
Yeah, those like AI note taker apps are incredible. It's one of my biggest frustrations with Buildtrend is they won't let us download them right now because I don't trust like where the data is being stored.
Sure.
Which I get. But like other companies that we work with will use them and they'll be like, hey, here's the summary of our call today. It's like, here's what we talked about. Here's the action items and like, here's who's going to do what. Like Charlie said, he was going to send this follow-up list, so-and-so. That's incredible. Because yeah, if you're having a good conversation, the last thing you want to do is like be looking at your keyboard and taking notes. And they're like, wait, what'd you say?
Also, if you want your like mind completely blown, that you can do like generations of these tools on top of each other. So like Notebook LM, for example, which is like Google's most contemporary one. Like if you take the call logs, you take the transcript, which you could also just do with your regular Google Meet or Teams or whatever. If you get a transcript, you drop it in the Notebook LM. It'll produce a podcast automatically from
Really?
the episode, and you can hear people talking about the call,
Oh, yeah.
which is super helpful because it's like, it
I see
sounds
what
like
you're saying.
other people were talking about this, which if they would never do so because it's like a developer meeting or something.
Yeah.
It's
I
really
think I
helpful.
saw something like that where they were using it for like in schools. So they would record the session and then they would drop in the podcast afterwards. So people could go back and listen to the lesson, but in a podcast format, which again, like you're not going to get another person up here and like talk about Tableau, but like from a retention, like memory standpoint, people just learn way better hearing conversation as opposed to stinky PowerPoint at the front of the class.
Totally.
Sorry.
They're good.
I just noticed a problem. So like my Airbnb is down, like it's not published anymore.
Oh, okay.
And that's because it was named just book 1. And and I don't know when I get the opportunity to actually name these projects.
Yes.
Now, this project that we're doing is the new book one that hasn't been published yet.
Yeah, so it should, when you hit save, it should prompt you. Gosh dang it.
You can also go up to File and do Export Packaged Workbook. I've been able to save locally with that.
I think, yeah, someone else brought that up last week. The Tableau Public lets you save locally now.
That's the only option I've gotten to work. Everything else makes me post it to public.
Yeah.
Because it really can't present it to me.
So, was Patrick? Was that you? So where do you go? Because that's the most recent update. I've never been able to save Tableau Public.
Yeah, no, I just got that update and I had to remake my stuff because it corrupted my data. It was fun. But if you just file and export packaged workbook.
Okay. We'll save right here. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Let's go ahead and get going here. Last thing we'll cover tonight is pie charts. And then just a quick preview. The assignment for Wednesday will be super similar. I know we covered a lot tonight. So I'm going to say just go ahead and build. We did actually build as well. I'll have you build at least 3 of these if you can. No need to replicate all of them, but it'll be the same exact thing as last time. All right. I know there's a lot of slides, but we'll go quick. So pie charts. Pie charts are, I'd say there's 2 super hot button issues in the nerdy data science community. The first is Python versus R. So those are 2 coding languages that data scientists use a ton. Statisticians tend to use R. Developers tend to use Python. They both come from different backgrounds. They both do the same thing. People argue about those all the time. They're both perfectly fine. The other one is, are pie charts good or not? So this was actually a super fun interview question I used to have. It's just like, what are your opinions on pie charts? Because depending on how nerdy they are, which is a good indicator that they'll be good for the job, they get really passionate about that question. So yeah, if you Google it, there's like a million different things talking about how bad they are. But I actually think that they do have #justice for pie charts. They do have advantages. My favorite show of all time, How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Marshall gets like a printing machine and he starts printing a ton of different things. So he made a pie chart describing his favorite bars and a bar chart describing his favorite pies. These are both actually really bad data vises, and we can talk about them. But like anytime you're bringing in like 3D pie charts, probably not very good. The data ink is horrible. I hate the colors. There's a lot of, you got the colors down here and up there. Yeah, a lot of redundancy. But knowing what your data looks like and what you're trying to show shows all the difference. So we'll cover a few rules of thumbs, but it really is a kind of a case-by-case basis. So 3 main reasons why you wouldn't use pie charts. A limited display of diversity. So it's not very effective in displaying categorical data when you have more than 3 to 5 different categories. So the more slices of pie, the harder it is to read at a glance. So here you can see this is actually using the Superstore data. I linked out in the blog from where I got this. You can see there's a ton of different subcategories here. You can see the first like 3 or 4 and kind of quickly see, okay, printers, bookcases. I actually don't know what that word is, and phones, but then after that, it gets pretty jumbled. So if you have a lot of different things, probably not good to use pie charts. The next is limited precision. So obviously, since pie charts are an area-based representation of data and it doesn't have an axis, it gets really hard to use precision. So you can tell that this one is about, what do you say, like a 5th, maybe a 6th of like the total size. 13% there, so maybe more like an 8th. But other than that, you can't really tell. If you start trying to bring labels on here, then obviously it gets really, really crowded as well too. You can hover over it, but we've already talked about why that's bad. So it takes up a lot of real estate and detracts from the ability to consume information at a glance. And then the last one, this is the one thing I'll always say, If you don't order stuff correctly, or if you try to bring in 3D, which Tableau doesn't let you do, but like the Weather Channel always seems to love like 3D bar charts and pie charts, and it drives me insane. It makes misrepresentation. So like this one, it looks like this one's a lot bigger. You can't really tell which of these are bigger. You're always going to want to sort them, kind of like this previous one is from biggest to smallest. So at least you have some gauge there. But once you start tilting things, obviously it makes it a lot harder to read.
Is there any advantage to pie chart when compared to a tree chart, a tree map? Because they both give you proportionality.
Yeah, they do. I would actually say those are both kind of in the same category. The only reason I would choose pie chart over a tree map is back to Jacob's law. It's like what people are kind of used to looking at there.
That's right. But the tree map can probably have smaller subsets, and you can have more slices, probably. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's different use cases for each. That's actually a really good question. So when to use pie charts? If you want to have a general sense of parts to the whole in the relationship of your data, comparing precise sizes and slices is less important. So if you just want to show this is about a third or this is about half, and I'll go through some examples here. Or if you want to convey that one segment of the total is relatively small or large. So like, look how big this section is. It's making up most of our sales, and this one's really small. So like this one, if you want to have a general sense of parts of the whole and precise sizes is less important, this is actually a really, really good example. So this one is showing this bar, and there's no labels or anything, is showing 75%, and this one's showing 25%. If you were to just look at those, you actually can't really tell. Like maybe this is about a fourth as big, maybe it's about half. This one's definitely bigger, but it's tough to tell with bar charts. If I want to see, if I'm trying to show this is about a quarter, everyone can look at this pie chart here and say 25% is gone. Like that's really, really easy to understand. So if you don't care that it's actually 26.3% and you're just trying to show it's about a quarter, pie charts are a lot better to use than bar charts. The second one is to convey that one segment of the total is relatively small or large. So again, up here, like using these ones here, there's a lot of different things in there. If I'm just trying to show, hey, this is phone profits. It's making up a large, which is by far the biggest percent of our total profits that's coming in. Like that's a good use case. Or if I want to show, hey, here's our copier profits. Look at all of our profits in here, and profits only make up that small amount. If you're just trying to show this is relatively small or large, this obviously is a lot better way than showing 50 different bars and showing that one is really small at the end. So why is this good? We can easily see, hey, technology makes up about half. We're able to see furniture is a really small portion of our total profits. All of our profits come from 3 categories. Why is this bad? Sorry, I'm trying to remember why I had these slides. I think this was an example of like one that in and of itself probably isn't good. It's really messy. It's not sorted. There's a lot of labels going on around here, a lot of different colors. This one, however, a specific use case, if I was just trying to show, hey, all of our, or a majority of our profits come from 4 categories, maybe I would just highlight those and say, hey, this is about half of our total profits, copiers, phones, accessories, and paper. That's good. And you can see why this is so much, for that specific example I just shared, is way better than this. So here's a bar chart that's showing total profits from all these. There's no way I can look at this in a glance and say, hey, about half is coming from these top 4, right? It's just too hard for me to rationalize and relate how big each one of those bars are and sum up the totals. So anytime you're trying to show pieces of a total, pie charts are a lot better. Patrick, do you have a question?
Do pie charts even show the negative numbers? Because like bookcases is negative, but like, does it even make a pie slice for a negative value?
That's a really good question. So I think in here it does. And this is probably a good example of when not to use a pie chart, just like the tree map earlier. As if you're working with negative numbers, I probably would not include them. But I did in my example, so good call out there. So it will show the absolute value. of the number in there. But that obviously that starts getting a little misleading with negatives. So I would not want to use a pie chart for profits. Great question. All right, and then donut charts. We probably won't, maybe we will. The only reason I like donut charts slightly better is just a little better data ink ratio because you're missing the middle chunk of that ink. Also, just inherently, I think they look fancier. I think it's like, oh, that guy's doing something a little different than a pie chart. There is no real reason to use one or the other. But
The other simple reason is you can use the center for labels.
yeah, you can pop that in the middle. Tableau does not have a donut chart by default, which I find really annoying, but I will show you guys how to make one. It's just a little complicated, but let's go ahead and open up Tableau. Let's create a new worksheet here. So I'm gonna let you guys on a dirty little secret. I actually don't know. I've worked in Tableau for 6 years now. I don't know how to build pie charts by default. This is what I do every single time. So let's make this really easy. Let's drag category onto columns and sales onto rows. Now I'm sure there's a way to do it by dragging stuff onto your marks cards and bringing in different labels and stuff. But what I do every time is just make a bar chart and click show me and just choose the pie chart.
Oh, that's what I did.
Yeah. Actually, no. Justice for Charlie here. You have to have something on the angle mark here, but like angle doesn't pop up. Like where am I even supposed to drag it in there? I don't know. I've never built one just from scratch. I always just go columns and rows here and then click pie chart. Now, someone was asking about this last week. It's really small by default. That's because we're still in our standard view here. So if I make this like entire view, obviously it gets bigger. If you want to adjust the size even more, you can click into the size button here. You can make it really big, you can make it really small. Somewhere kind of right there is probably fine. Now to clean this up a little bit, we have our different colors by category here. What I typically like to do is bring categories onto labels as well. So then I have furniture, office supplies, technology. Then you can also drag sales up to labels as well. So now you can actually see, if you wanted to see the actual numbers, you can see them in here. Now this is good because you can see, hey, all of our sales are composed of only 3 categories. It's also good because you can see they all make up about a third. Now, obviously, we have the labels in there as well. So we can see, okay, furniture is slightly bigger, technology's the biggest here. If I didn't have the labels in there, it'd probably be tough to tell. So if I wanted to show exact numbers, I probably wouldn't use a pie chart. But bringing those onto the labels eliminates that problem for us. And then another kind of tip and trick, if I click into my label, so click this button right here, you can see I can change my font, I can change my color. What I typically will do match mark color and make it bold. So then that way it just a little more closely aligns with what furniture, office supplies, and technology are shown here. And obviously I wouldn't need these things over here. It's just a little bit cleaner here. And then let's rename this like total sales by category.
Click in the categories and then click all that.
Click in label. The actual square though, not the
Oh,
hill.
okay.
And then under fault, there's a match mark color, a bold option. Any questions? Does everyone have this? Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that if starting from a fresh table, once you put categories under color, it then lets you drop down and choose a pie chart. When you click automatic, you choose a pie chart, and then whatever you put into the angle will adjust the angles.
There you go. You learn something new every day.
And then obviously the text and the detail from there.
Right. Thank you, thank you. You know, I probably could have Googled that sometime in the last 6 years and learned it, but that was way easier, so. All right, one last thing. I'll show you guys how to make a donut chart before we move to the homework section. This is gonna be putting my skills to a test a little bit here, seeing if I can do it from scratch. And no worry about following along because it's kind of wonky. You'll see what I mean in a second. But we'll go ahead and duplicate this. I believe all you have to do is go up to columns. If you double click in here, you can actually create your own data point. I'm just gonna type a 1 in there. And then I'm gonna make that an attribute. And then I'm gonna double click into here, type a 1 again. Make that an attribute. Nope, I lied. Okay, so we want both of them on the rows. So again, let's do that cleaner. Here's my pie chart. Double click, type a 1. Change that to an attribute. Double click into it again, type another 1. Change that to an attribute. So, what have we done here? We learned it earlier tonight. We have essentially created a dual axis chart. So we just kind of cheated to do it because you can see our axes here are fake axes. They're just 1, right? So we're not grouping by anything. We're measuring 1, but they're not really doing anything, right? Now we have 2 axes, each showing a pie chart in here. All we're grouping by is this 1. So what we're gonna do to make our donut chart here, essentially what this is showing in a fake way is a pie chart in the background and a blank pie chart in the middle. So I remember earlier I showed you how you could adjust the sizes of them. So this is our top pie chart. This is our bottom pie chart over in attributes. I'll prove it just by changing the color of one. Oh, but it's not gonna let me. Okay, never mind. But they're different. So I'm gonna go down to my bottom one here, and I'm gonna get rid of the category color, and I'm going to get rid of the category text, and I'm gonna get rid of our labels. So now it's just showing the total sales in here. Actually, don't think we need that either. Yeah. So now I can adjust the size of this one. No, I do want that to be on the angle. Okay. So as long as you only have sum of sales on the angle, you can move the size of the bottom one only, and it doesn't affect your top one. So I'm going to make this just slightly smaller. And I'm going to change the color to white. And then just like we did with our dual axis before, if I right click into this and hit dual axis, now I have a fake pie chart right here, right? All I'm doing is just showing the total sales. Then I still have my real pie chart here, so I can make it bigger or smaller. It's just being covered up by the white one in there. So no worries about following along. If you want to go back and watch that, feel free. It's super, super, super wonky. It's definitely a workaround. It was not meant to be built out of the box. I don't know why they haven't built a donut chart. Like, it should be really easy for them to just add another one in there. But there are some slick workarounds in Tableau.
I was hoping you should go back by just like the last 3 steps. I was keeping it up.
Yeah. So we're not going to touch our top pie chart at all. Our bottom one in here, we're going to drag all these things off except for the sum of sales, which is on the angle. I actually wonder, oh, we actually don't need anything in there. You can drag them all off. And now we just have a blank pie chart with nothing in there. Then all you have to do is just change the color to white and hit dual axis. So now you can see the white one is a little too big. So you can change the size to make it a little smaller. Or if you wanted to, you can make the top one slightly bigger.
So for dual axis, you have to click the bottom one.
Yep, click the bottom one to select dual
That's
axis.
where I was starting to qualify that.
Yep. Cool. All right, we'll move on. Yeah, 10 minutes behind, that's okay. So homework should be slightly easier tonight because you do not have to go and find a new data set. If you want to, if you don't like the one you used night one or like exploring and have extra time, feel free to go find a new one. All I ask is that obviously you don't use the Superstore data set since that's what we did in class and you already have all those built. So find a new data set if you want, or use the one that you found last night, bring it into Tableau. Try to build at least 3 of these. Text table, let's say, doesn't count, but you can just drag the color on there and make a highlight table really easy. Try to build a dual axis chart. Like if I were you, I would probably try to build these 3. But if you can't build them all, don't worry about it. Publish Tableau public. And then let's make a rule. Go ahead and a couple of you have done this, which I really like. If you shoot me the link, like tonight or tomorrow or whatever, I will take a look at it Tuesday, and then I can like provide you some feedback on if it's good or not. And then that way I can also kind of curate if anyone does a really good example. I can show you, make sure that you present for the show and tell next week or whatever. But yep, use your new data set, find a new one if you want, bring it into Tableau, build 3 of these. These would probably be the 3 easiest ones. Publish Tableau, and then we'll be good to go on Wednesday. Any questions about the homework? Otherwise, we'll do what we normally do, and I'll just kind of walk around and sit here for an hour. Otherwise, I'll turn you guys loose. Good? Sweet. If you guys have plans, need to get out of here, feel free. Just make sure it's done by Wednesday. Otherwise, I will be here for the next hour and 20 minutes.
So, just real quick, every time I click save, it publishes under the title book 1. So all of my old work just keeps getting overwritten. So yeah, every time it's just like my old book 1 was.
Gotcha. So let's go, yeah. If you go to, you should be able to change the title. That's, I didn't know about that. I actually brought it up there. Or maybe see the title.
So like we're supposed to be having a portfolio like that.
Right.
Then you get that little by time a little bit more. All of the work that we've done is
Gotcha. Do you think does this one reach? is the correct type. Is that? Okay, so this is the one we have.
This is just one. It just keeps publishing. The opportunity to change the view because here it says week 2.1 is on the publishing should please have that.
Right.
No, I put it down. Like 415 is probably gonna fill up. That's when I see it. Right. So that's probably gonna fill up the Airbnb stuff. But then if I want to just go in and call those things, like how can I just make sure that um,
Okay. So I think as long as you click save the Tableau as, it will let you choose. So that was that's weird. Because we do that. Alright, so where's the other? Yeah, so just, I guess for some reason you have to click save the Tableau button as
alright,
an extra step. I don't know why, that's different for you.
so all of the work that we did tonight, maybe let's see. Okay. We're covering it.
There you go.
I did, but I really appreciate this.
Yeah, of course.
information. I feel like I'm becoming a very valuable human being.
That's what I love to hear.
I have a friend, his name is Fabrice Toto. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he does like machine learning and data science, and like he's got his doctors in math.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, he works at the farm credit services.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he like built like a whole model around how to predict because like 90% of someone from default, someone's gonna default.
Yeah.
The farm credit, and like now we're building like an entire app around his.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, people that work in like the financial space always, I don't know, it's cool. It's definitely a lot more pressure.
Yeah.
Like the medical field would be like number one place I would want to work, and then like the financial space would probably be number two. Because like my model messes up, like, oh shoot, we get 500 sales instead of like 550 or whatever. But like in there, someone messes up, like someone dies or like gets their house taken away. Like,
Yeah.
that's high risk, high reward though, I'm sure.
Yeah, he talks about that. Like their team, they go like on the team dinners to like Sylvan Steakhouse and
Oh yeah,
take trips to Vegas for I don't even know what they do, business conferences. And,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, like for me, because like I said, I'm in the startup world and like waning because I had a career as a mixing engineer. I have a studio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I did that for reality television shows and stuff.
Oh sweet. Which one? Anything I've heard of?
Nah, a bunch of like little stuff. They're like a startup as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they went under. Literally, they went under like last month.
Really?
Yes, that was great.
That is
But
crazy.
yeah, I had a pretty good career there, and like it was cool. But I was like, nah, I gotta do this like startup thing. Like,
Yeah.
start my company, blah blah blah. So now I'm in the middle of that. And it's like it's crazy, man. Life full of grays right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hopefully, this skill can lead me to.
Yeah. Well, I was actually telling my wife tonight because I was just talking about the class a little bit. Like, I'd say that everyone I've worked with, probably like less than half actually go on to like a career dedicated to like data science. But the ones that like stay in their current career are able to like use these skills to continue to elevate themselves too. So
Yeah.
even if like it's not a data science career, the ability to like take data and like use it to inform your decisions is going to put you at the top of the field no matter where you eventually go into.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking as well. A lot to see, and now that I can say things local, I can really
Yeah.
get my nitty-gritty. All right, you guys have a good night. I'll see you in a couple days.
Yep.